Hi, today I want to talk about books that colloquially I call 小杂包 literature. On an international stage, they are better known as books that feature women characters who are, I guess you can define them as psychotic. The crazy woman in the attic trope is something that has been around for a very, very long time. When we look at classics like The Yellow Wallpaper, there is acknowledgement that yes, she is perhaps mentally unwell. Yes, perhaps this is because of the way that her husband infantilizes her or trivializes her needs and her wants. But so what? There is no next step. You know what I mean? The book ends at the part where she realizes that she is the crazy woman inside the wallpaper, but there is no afterward. There is no like, okay, so does she break out of the house? Does she stab her husband to death? Does she commit suicide? What is the ending here? I think that characters who play the crazy or the hysterical wife, I think people now are a little bit tired of that. Probably that is why there are so many books now that talk about what these wives do after they realize that they are not entirely, perhaps well is not the word to use, perhaps what I mean is that they are not entirely adjusted to the society that encases them. There is a lot of catharsis in reading books where women just go berserk. One common thread tying all of it together is this idea of a woman being pushed past her breaking point. When I think about why is it that nowadays, when you look at like literary fiction, there are so many books featuring women characters who no longer want to fit into the mold and they no longer want to follow all the rules prescribed to them by patriarchal society. Okay, so my first book is Victorian Cycle by Feito. This book is trending right now. Everyone and their mother is reading Victorian Cycle. The word cycle is very, very loaded. You think about the movie, you think about the book, you think about this idea of somebody who carries around a weapon and then goes around like hacking at people. It's kind of something like that. That's the implication of such a word. And the word Victorian itself is also really loaded. Maybe some people you start thinking about like the Bridgerton era, you know, Regency. It's not really the same. The word Victorian also suggests repression, restriction, women in corset, children being raised by their nannies. The word Victorian no longer belongs to a really particular point in history. It comes with a lot of other connotations now that are in part the result of time having passed and also there being a lot of media set during those times. Victorian Cycle is narrated from the first person point of view by a young woman called Winifred. What we understand at the very start is that Winifred is in a carriage. She is a governess. The interiority presented to us is one that is not quite right. The narrative voice was done very well, in my opinion, because when you're reading it, almost immediately you know that this woman is unusual. She doesn't have ordinary concerns. She is also very unabashedly open about her psychopathic desires. She doesn't try to conceal her past. And I think what's most interesting about Winifred's narrative voice is she doesn't feel ashamed. She doesn't feel any guilt, even a little twinge of remorse for having done what she has done, which is kill babies. So a woman who kills babies is a governess, tale as old as time. She is currently on the way to her new place of employment where she will be in charge of 2 other children. And this is the first time that she's like meeting her employers, because last time people employ each other via letter. No such thing as like a job interview, you know. They just go, oh, your references are okay, you seem to have experience, when can you start? After she has entered this household, the narrative then splits between the past and the present. So in the present, she is learning about the house, she's learning about her employers, learning about the children. She says very concerning things to them, but they kind of love her because honestly the children themselves are not quite right. The reason why these really problematic children and Winifred, they get along is because Winifred herself is emotionally undeveloped and therefore they can vibe on the same wavelength. So in the past, we find out that Winifred was raised by a single mother. She knows who her father is, but she also knows that her father has willfully abandoned her. Her mother, by our contemporary standards, is definitely some level of abusive. Even if it's just severe neglect, it is still abuse. She needs to go out and work. So she dumps her daughter with what was considered like last time's idea of infant care. The person taking care of the infants doesn't really want to take care of them. She just needs to keep them alive. So they gave all the infants a lot of laudanum, which is very, very bad for small children. You shouldn't be taking laudanum long term, and you definitely shouldn't be taking it every day. But they were giving this to infants. You know, they were basically drugging the infants. She does suggest that maybe it's due to the laudanum, you know, it damaged her brain, it creates some kind of personality disorder. But there is a proper cause for her psychopathic nature. Another thing about Winifred is that her end goal seems to be to tear this family apart. Being the governess in a household, it's very standard that the mistress of the house will get jealous of her, especially when the master of the house, which is the father of the children, starts to pay her a lot of attention, starts to go on walks with her, and she tries to punish Winifred for it. I think for Winifred, she's so damaged inside that she can't even feel ordinary emotions, or she doesn't even want acceptance from other people. When her mistress makes her spend the night in the dog kennel, she doesn't feel humiliated. She doesn't feel like she's being punished. She's just following instructions. She's like, hanging out here with this dog is not too bad. It's kind of comfortable. And then the next day she just exits the kennel full of smiles. And the mistress is unnerved. Who wouldn't be, right? But I think the way I read it, Winifred's disposition, I guess you can call it that, personally I liked it because it made her immune to others' expectations, it made her immune to social expectations. She eats like crazy, she doesn't give a fuck if she's fat, she does what she wants, she says what she wants. At the end of the day, she's able to focus on her goals because other people's emotions literally do not matter to her. When other people's emotions don't matter to you, you are free. Of the whole book, Winifred is the most free character. This may be a spoiler. I'm just going to talk about it. You can skip to the end if you don't want to. We find out then that Winifred is actually the illegitimate daughter of her employer. The reason why she has entered this household is to kill his entire family. Literally everybody. She kills the staff, kills her half-brother, the wife. The only person that she doesn't kill is her half-sister. It is implied that the two of them are cut from the same cloth. The two of them are both closeted psychopaths. Instead of defending her family, her half-sister actually joins Winifred in the killing spree. At the end of it, the sister just pretended to be one of the victims. I felt that camaraderie at the end really tied the story together. Winifred, she doesn't have friends, she doesn't have supporters, she doesn't have companions, she doesn't have somebody by her side. But towards the end, she found unexpected sisterhood. Do psychopaths deserve family? In this book, yes. And another thing admirable about her is that it's not like she just wanted to kill everybody, then get away with it and run off with money to live a good life. No, she wanted to take her revenge, but she was also 100% prepared to be hung at the gallows. In Chinese, we have this saying, you know, 敢做敢当. She encapsulated that. Yeah, I quite enjoyed this book. Another book I want to talk about that's set in sort of the same time period is Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen. I really liked her previous book, My Dreadful Darling Thing. That's why I requested it for the ARC. I was so excited. Like Victorian Cycle, this book makes use of tropes from a previous era. This uses gothic tropes. It's a gothic setting, gothic themes. The idea of a corruptible body, or a body double, or a corpse rising from the dead, all of this falls under the gothic. The main characters in the book are a pair of twins called Sarah and Lucy. Part of the story is told through letters and journal entries. This is also another way that the book harkens back to an older form. This is the epistolary form. But something about this author's works that stands out to me is how, even though she uses a lot of these old techniques, the style of writing, the treatment of the characters, the storyline, contemporary for sure. I think one way that the contemporariness really stands out is how the characters here, they are allowed to be queer. Specifically, they are allowed to be lesbian, and this is not treated as a plot twist. This is just treated as something that the characters are that places them in danger. Their queerness is not treated as like the butt of the joke. It's not something sensational and salacious to draw the readers in. That kind of respectful inclusion of queerness in her books is what marks it as undeniably contemporary in the best way possible. Sarah is the twin that is I guess, more attractive. Since they were little, Lucy has always felt like she was just an extension of her sister. She was just there to be her sister's foil because she doesn't have her own will. She always felt like she was lesser than her sister. Her sister was a whole person. She was only half a person. And the other half is her sister. Does that make her sister 1.5 people? I guess in her mind her sister is 1.5 people and she's like 0.5 people. Even though their relationship is very imbalanced in this sense, they are devoted to each other. They love each other more than anything in this world. This is another thing that I'm starting to see in books. This idea that sisterhood is more important than any kind of romantic relationships a person can have. It could be like a blood bond, but it can also be like a chosen family. I really love this recent trend of decentering romantic relationships. Also this expanding of what counts as a familial bond. Lucy, she would do anything to make Sarah happy. And one of these things that she did was to give up the guy that she liked. When he met her sister, he liked her. She just let it go. When it came time for them to marry, she didn't protest, she just let it happen. Her sister then went on to have a child, but the child died. After the child died, their marriage just started falling apart. Out of the book, Lucy is rushing down to Sarah's home because Sarah is gravely ill. Being back in that place dredges up a lot. And one of those memories is the memory of her having an affair with her sister's husband when they had just lost their child. Grief makes people do stupid things. The husband has also started to express disdain for his wife because it seems like his wife doesn't want him physically. Whereas for Lucy, she has always been very physically receptive to him. He didn't want an intelligent woman who read more than him, could debate on any topic, whether it's science or philosophy or whatever. No, he didn't want that. At the end of the day, he just wanted a good submissive wife at home to have sex with. Unfortunately, he married the wrong sister. Now, everyone is wondering, does Sarah have the madness that runs in the family? Sarah and Lucy, they both have a deadly fear of the asylum because they know that their aunt died mysteriously in that place. And they know that being sent to the asylum is basically a death sentence. Why is Sarah mad? The reason why is because, you know, white people, they're just digging things up all the time. There was a bog near the house. They dug up a corpse by accident. And this corpse, all the teeth were broken. There was a giant rock stuffed into the mouth. Sarah, she became obsessed with it. She wanted to study it. She also did this thing where she stuck her hand into the corpse's mouth. She pulled out the rock. And when she pulled it out, whatever remaining teeth there was, like, scraped her hand. And she started bleeding into the mouth of the corpse. That's like Resurrection 101, right? You feed the dead thing like a little bit of your blood, and then now you're bound together. After that, Sarah starts talking about how hungry she is. She's like fucking hungry, but she doesn't want to eat human food. She just wants to eat something else. Why is that something else? Human blood. That's what she wants to eat. She has turned into some kind of ghoul. So now here comes this gothic ambiguity. Is she genuinely crazy? Is this the genetic insanity? Or is she possessed by the ghost of the bog corpse? Or is there like a scientific explanation? Here onwards is spoilers, okay? Supposedly, the reason why she could die and then come back to life again is because her body was taken over by a parasite. Right up till she succumbed, she was researching. There was something inside her body. What I also really liked was how Lucy still chooses to see her as her sister. When Lucy sees her sister having lesbian sex with somebody, she still chooses to accept because she just loves her sister so much. This is unconditional love. And I think that it's also possible to read the parasite as some kind of metaphor for what happens when women start prioritizing their own survival. In the woman that it used to previously possess, she started eating living creatures. I'm also thinking about how this idea of a woman's hunger could also mean her desires. When you look at what kind of person Sarah becomes after her transformation, somebody who gives in to her wants. She wants to have a relationship that's not shitty like the one she has with her husband. She goes and she gets it. She wants to eat. She goes and she gets it. Like I said previously, not caring about other people. To be more clear, not caring about people who do not care about you is a form of liberation. This historical setting itself, so characterized by repression and women being stuck at home, women having no rights, women being tied to their unhappy marriages, the choice of setting makes the character's liberation more significant. So in the end, this is a spoiler again, Sarah and Lucy and Sarah's new girlfriend, they managed managed to kill the man and run away. Yay! I actually wanted to talk about like 9 books, but now it's impossible. I'm just going to talk about 2 more books. Another book about crazy woman is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. This book is also trending right now. A Certain Hunger is about a serial killer of a woman called Dorothy. The entire narrative is framed as a memoir that she has written when she was in prison for murder. So Dorothy, she's a woman in her 50s already. In this memoir, she's talking about her life from childhood. Dorothy's narrative voice is intelligent, highly knowledgeable, and also very funny. I found her very funny. Whether or not a book is funny is important to me. If it isn't even a little bit funny, I can start to find it tedious, and then it starts to feel like I'm reading homework, something for class. And this book is funny. I took so many screenshots, and then I had to pare them down to make them fit inside the Instagram album. The reason why she wanted to write this memoir is because she wanted to leave her mark. You look at the title, A Certain Hunger, it already hints to you what kind of person she is and what she's looking for in life. Dorothy is very, very food motivated. In the whole book, there are so many descriptions of food that I have never eaten before, food that I will probably never eat. First of all, because I don't have the money to do it. Second of all, I don't eat mammals. She's a food critic, a food writer. Throughout her entire life, her one and enduring relationship, her 2 most enduring relationships are that with food and that with her friend. I don't know whether you're the kind of reader who likes reading about food. Maybe when you read about textures, or you read about taste, you read about smells, it helps you envision it better. For me personally, the food descriptions don't add anything, but I wouldn't say that they detract from the reading experience as well. Honestly, I cannot even begin to imagine how it might taste. If you're somebody who like goes to restaurants, fine dining once in a while, if you're an adventurous eater, like you want to eat things like bear or veal, then there's a lot in this book for you. Dorothy's prioritization of having good meals is part of a larger appetite. I see some resonances between Dorothy in this book and Winifred in the Victorian cycle. When you have a woman character who loves to eat and she just eats what she wants and she keeps talking about eating, that is something that is unusual. There is this expectation that women should not be eating so much. They should be watching their weight, they should be watching their figure. That if a woman loves to eat, it's almost like a sin. Why are you so greedy? Why are you such a glutton when there are characters who are unabashedly gluttonous? That's a signal to me that this character is written in response to the world outside of the book. Even though people say that eating disorders are bad, they actively nurture eating disorders in themselves. They say they don't have eating disorders and then they cut out carbs, watching their weight every single day, eat 1 meal a day, order a sweet drink with 0% sugar and no whipped cream. And it's like, are you really doing it for your health? Are you doing it because you don't want to get fat? Because you think that being fat is something that makes you unattractive? That is because you cannot undo this ideology in your head that equates fat with unattractive or fat with like low value. Okay, that was a diversion. Sorry for the detour. So going back to the book, Dorothy and Winifred, they both feed their appetites. I don't think it is a coincidence that a woman character who allows herself to have an appetite is also a woman character who is a psychopath. It all comes down to repression, or a woman who does not repress herself, lets herself do what she wants, let herself eat what she wants. And a woman like that is unusual. A woman like that must be sick in the head. So Dorothy, she talks about the different men that she dated. They also betrayed her in small ways, or at least that's how she sees it. I know that the punishment is not proportionate to the crime. And one consistent thing that she does across these murders of her lovers is that she will cut out like a part of their body, cook it, which then makes her a cannibal. There is also a long section in the middle which asks the question, why are human beings so against cannibalism when, first of all, you do it during wartime, during starvation and famine? Culturally, people have also done it. When you look at the animal kingdom, they are doing it. Why is cannibalism considered unnatural? Out of everything that can be considered unnatural, the gore level is quite high because she will describe very clearly, leaving no room for the imagination, exactly how she cuts up the man and how she takes out their guts. If you cannot handle gore, maybe you like close your eyes and then just flip and then like, oh okay, the cutting is over, now it's the eating. Because she cuts them up, she then needs to disguise the fact that she cut out a piece of them, right? She will make the body so disfigured that nobody can figure out. In one case, she let the guy's dogs eat his body. In another case, she left his body in the ocean. In another case, she started drawing satanic symbols on the floor and on the wall. And in the case that got her caught, she tried to set the house on fire. For me, her relationships with the men are not as important as her relationship with her one and only friend that she made in college. Their friendship lasted all the way into their 50s. The thing that made her incriminate herself is she assumed her friend had betrayed her when her friend didn't. None of the other men could unsettle her, but at the thought of her friend possibly betraying her, she loses all reason and then she incriminates herself. I found that very touching. Yeah, I know, like, we're touching in a book about a psychopath. At the end of the day, her friend still chose to keep her secrets and take her side and 100% accept her for who she is despite what she has done. And I like that a lot. Obviously, murder is wrong, but we would all want a friend like that. So I'm just going to talk about one more book, and I'll talk about the other 20 books another day. Maybe I should just take a break from reading. The last book I'm going to talk about is Tampa by Alissa. Nothing. This book, I tried to recommend it to my library and they said it's a banned book. This day and age, banned book in Singapore. Wow, shocker. I'm the kind of person where if you don't let me read something, I'm going to read it like immediately. So I read this book in its entirety, even though I really wanted to stop, but I had to read it because it's a banned book. You don't let me read, I'm gonna read. At the end of the day, I think it suffered like mental damage. It's all in the name of combating censorship. I feel this book, right, is infamous because it's like Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, but a lot grosser. If you read Lolita, you felt like nauseated. The guy keeps talking about her vagina and referring to it as a rose. You are in for a rude shock in this book because it is gross. It's disgusting. The main character is a married woman called Mrs. Celeste Price. On paper, her marriage looks great because they are both extremely attractive. She has money because her husband's family has money. She lives in a big house. Her one and only job is to just stay looking hot so that her husband can show her off and be like, yes, my wife is hotter than your wife. So she's basically like a trophy wife. I don't even know where to start. She is sexually attracted only to 14-year-old boys. Not every 14-year-old boy. The 14-year-old boy needs to be shorter than her, skinny, androgynous looking. He needs to look like a twink. He cannot have acne. He cannot have facial hair. Any markers of maturity on that boy's body are a turn off to her. So like a boy on the cusp. It's like a really specific window. The kind of look or aesthetic she's attracted to exists only within maximum 1 year. At that age, right, boys can go for summer camp and come back 10 cm taller. The window is so narrow. That is the only thing she likes. That's the only thing that she has any kind of sexual attraction and response to, which is why she went into teaching. Before that, she was just fantasizing, and her fantasies are gross. Okay, I am not king shaming anybody, but her fantasies are disgusting. I would think that she is also some kind of psychopath, but like in a negative way. She's always calculating how to get what she wants. So for example, for her husband, she doesn't care that he feels rejected and unloved by her, so she will have sex with him to get him off her back. And the same thing with her victims, like, you know, she doesn't actually care how they feel. She doesn't care that they are like beating themselves up inside. She doesn't care that they are becoming depressed. She only cares that it affects their performance in bed. She goes into class and she purposely doesn't really wear opaque clothing. She will remove her jacket. When she sees the boy that she likes, she will undo her hairband so that her hair will like fall down. She will also spray herself with perfume. Everything that she does is designed to entice and seduce the boys that she teaches in school. So she finds a boy called Jack, stalks him to his house. She watches him masturbate. She has like binoculars and she's like watching him masturbating while she's also like masturbating in the car. And she goes to class and she asks him to stay back. And she's like, the other day I was on the street visiting a friend and I saw you masturbating. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since. So in this way, she manages to coerce him into a sexual relationship with her. I think what the author did a very good job of is making it very unsexy. Yes, I am registering the fact that she has sexual gratification, but the way that the story is told, it makes it impossible for you to be fully immersed in her perspective. So you are forever an uncomfortable outsider, forced to watch this happen. And that makes it difficult for you to feel sympathy or any kind of empathy for her. Even though there are many sex scenes in this book, I think the author does a good job in ensuring that the reader stays grossed out even while Celeste is having the time of her life. I think one of the contributing factors that make the sex scenes so gross is the level of detail. They highlight just how many instructions she has to give. She's literally with a 14-year-old boy who has zero sexual experience, never even kissed a girl. She has to give him specific instructions, like which hand put on which leg, step-by-step instructions, because if not, the boy will just sit there and do nothing. But she likes it. But I felt annoyed. I was getting impatient already. I was like, this is the least sexy sex scene I've read in my entire life. It's like teaching a child. And I guess she is. That's what she's doing. She's teaching a child. I was grossed out. And then Jack falls into depression. But she's just like, oh, whatever. And then she goes to find like another 14-year-old boy to have sex with. This 14-year-old boy is a bit more experienced. Obviously, it's still grooming. But there was quite a big difference between like her first victim and her second victim because he really wanted to bang his hot teacher. Jack found out and he went berserk. He attacked the other boy and then she gets caught because she ran out onto the street completely naked and covered in blood. Her husband divorced her, moved away to somewhere that nobody knows her, where she can lie about her age and continue preying on underage boys. And because she's still very hot and beautiful, the boys don't really care. I think it does raise some concerns, and I think one of the concerns is how people in general tend to go easier on others who are conventionally beautiful. During the court proceedings, something that stood out and something that Celeste's lawyer used to defend her actions is that she is so beautiful, right? Is it really a loss if these 14-year-old boys had sex with her? What 14-year-old boy wouldn't want to have sex with this? You know, she's a model, she's gorgeous. If you were a 14-year-old boy, would you pass up the opportunity to have sex with someone like that? Obviously not, right? They used this to sort of try to reduce her sentence, and it worked. The question here is not whether or not the 14-year-old boy wants to have sex with his hot teacher. The question is, why does the teacher want to have sex with the 14-year-old boy? What the boy wants is irrespective. What he wants shouldn't even come into the equation. The only thing that should be considered is what the teacher doing correct. I think the author made a really smart decision to make Celeste super duper gorgeous because her beauty is something that makes it difficult to apply rules and laws to her. So beauty in this book then acts as like an obfuscator. Another thing that this book does make you think about is teenagers, by and large, are sexual beings. And to say that they don't have sexual urges or that they don't know what is sex or they cannot have sex, no, that's not true, okay? But laws aside, morality aside, religion aside, the only acceptable arrangement should be with other teenagers, not with adults. That's just how I feel. I can't believe I was so ambitious as to think that I could talk about 10 more books. Maybe if the books were less complicated, yeah, sure. I'll just save it for the next video. If you do end up reading any of these books, especially Tampa, like, please tell me how you felt. I don't know anybody else who has read Tampa from start to end. So, thanks for watching. I will make an effort to talk about books more often. Bye bye.